welcome to the video for block number 4 of the 2024 Summer Sew Along. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Kathy, your host, and today I'm going to show you step by step how to make block number 4. If you're interested in sewing along, I encourage you to take a look at our past videos for block 1, 2, and 3, and also visiting our website at delafieldquiltco.com, where the instructions are available for download for free. There's also the video for each week will be on this website as well. Now this is a mystery sew along, so the blocks don't get revealed until the day that I drop the YouTube videos. And you will see each block on our YouTube channel at 9 a.m. on Sundays for the rest of the sew along. And a few of you have asked about the fabric. I did have the bundles originally for sale on our website, and I sold out of the complete bundles that included the background fabric as well. But I am going to be listing just the colors for the sew along that will be available in fat quarter bundles. And you'll just need to find your own background fabric to go with it, which I think probably will be pretty easy because there's lots of white background fabrics that would look great with these colors. All right, let's get started with block number 4. Okay, and to get started with block number 4, you're going to need the following pieces. Okay, and I've already got all my pieces cut, so I'm ready to put this block together. And this block's got a couple different techniques that we're going to use in it. First is we're going to make a couple sets of 4 at a time flying geese, which is one of my favorite. And we're also going to make a couple sets of 4 at a time half square triangles. All right, first we're going to start with the 4 at a time flying geese. So you are going to need a pencil, a nice sharp one, or some other fabric friendly pen, and your ruler. And the first thing we're going to do to make our 4 at a time flying geese, we'll start with the big ones, and then there's a small set here too that we'll sew as well. But let's start first with the outer, and we'll work our way into the block. And don't forget to download the instructions if you like the written format. All those are available on our website at delafieldquiltco.com. All right, to start with the outer 4 at a time flying geese, all right, we're going to need our square A 5 1/4 inch square of the background fabric, which is feather in this case. And then we're going to need our 4 2 7/8 inch squares that are from the green apple. That is piece H. So on the wrong side of the fabric for square H here, I'm going to draw a diagonal line down the center of each of these 4 squares. And if you haven't seen me do this in other videos, I'll just go through this kind of quickly. When I draw a line onto fabric, I like to use this diagonal 45-degree mark, and I go slightly below the points just to make sure I'm allowing for the thickness of my writing utensil. And then I'm going to repeat that on the other squares, which I've already done. Right, I'm going to go ahead and get ready that second set of flying geese. That is the pink and the popsicle color one. And I've got the same size square that I did for in the green apple. That's in the popsicle, so that's 2 7/8 inch squares. And then I also have a 5 1/4 inch square in the pink color. And just like with the green apple square, I'm going to draw a diagonal line down the back of each of the popsicle squares that are 2 7/8 inch. Okay, I've got these all drawn. I'm just going to do these kind of at the same time because they're the same steps. So first, we're going to line up one of our 2 7/8 inch squares on the top corner here of the background fabric, and then we're going to put another one at the bottom. And I am going to just put a few pins just to keep these 2 squares in place. And since I'm doing the same thing with this other set, I'm going to go ahead and do those 2. And then to sew these, I'm going to do a 1/4 inch on both sides of the drawn lines here. And I'm just using my 1/4 inch foot to make sure I get that 1/4 inch on there. All right, now that I've got these both sewn, I'm just going to go ahead and cut right on that line that I drew earlier. Okay, now I'm going to press these. I'm going to press them towards these small little triangles here. Kind of looks like a little cat. And you're just going to repeat that for all these pieces here. And when I'm pressing these, I'm just kind of folding them open with my fingers first, just trying to get that kind of pre-pressed, just so it works a little bit easier when I go to do the actual pressing of it. Okay, now we are going to put on the other two squares. I'm just placing these so the corners line up with the unsewn part here of the larger piece here. And then it should come directly in the middle of these two little triangles here. Okay, now that I've got these pinned down, I'm just going to do 1/4 inch again on both sides of the line for all of these pieces. Alright, almost done with these flying geese. And just like before, I'm going to cut on that pencil line. And to press these, I'm just going to press again towards this small triangle. Okay, I've got 4 of each set here. Now I need to cut these down. They should be pretty close to the actual size with very little waste. All right, to trim these, we're going to make sure that they're going to be 2.5 inches tall by 4.5 inches wide. And I like to use the 45-degree mark on my ruler. And I'm going to line it up as best I can so that that line goes right along the side of this big white triangle here. And I want to make sure that I've got 1/4 inch of seam allowance from the bottom point of that triangle to the edge there. Once you got that lined up, you just go ahead and trim around your top 2 sides there. Give it a flip, and we know the bottom is square. So I'm just going to use that then for the next cut at 4.5 inches wide by 2.5 inches tall. That's how you trim these. And you can see there's very little waste on these. I think that's why they're called the no waste 4 at a time flying geese. All right, I'm just going to continue trimming these, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we are moving on to the next step, and we're going to make little mini 4 at a time no waste flying geese. These are probably the smallest ones I've ever made. All right, for this one, we're going to need the 3.25 inch square of the green apple, and then the 1 7/8 inch squares of the pale pink. And just like with the larger set, we're going to draw a diagonal line down each of the pale pink squares. I've already got these done here, and then same process as the bigger one. I'm going to lay 2 of these squares on top of the green apple square. Line up that drawn line and put a few pins just to keep it in place. And then I'm going to sew 1/4 inch along each side of the pencil line. I'm going slow because these pieces are so small, and I'm just going to adjust a little bit if I need to, just in case they shifted out of place. Okay, now that I've got that done, just like before, I'm going to cut on that pencil line. And I'm going to press towards the little triangles. Pressing tiny little pieces can be kind of tricky. All right, same thing as before. We're going to take our last squares, line them up with the 2 sides here, pin them in place, and then I'm going to sew again 1/4 inch on both sides of the line. All right, just like before, I'm going to press and then trim, and when I trim these, they're going to need to be 1.5 inches tall by 2.5 inches wide. They're itty bitty. All right, I'm going to finish trimming those off, and then I'll come back and move on to the 4 at a time half square triangles. Moving on to our 4 at a time half square triangles, and we're going to do 2 sets of larger ones and then 1 set of smaller ones. And it's super simple. With the larger ones, we're going to use a 4-inch square of the green apple and put that on top of a 4-inch square of the background, which is feather. And we're going to do 2 sets of these. And I am going to put a pin in the middle just to keep these together. And then for the smaller set, same thing. But just smaller. So we have our 2.5 square of green apple and a 2.5 square of pale pink. And put those right sides together. You really want to make sure your edges are lined up on these. And a pin to keep that in place. And now the 4 at a time, it's very simple. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way around each of these sets, just on the edge. And then we'll come back and we'll cut these into 4 half square triangles. Okay, once you have your 4 sides sewn, then we're going to cut this apart. And I am going to use my 45-degree line on my ruler, and I want to really make sure that I'm corner to corner. And I'm going to slice once. I'm going to slice it a second time. Should have used my rotating mat, I guess, on this one. And then same thing for the other side. Now I have 4 at a time half square triangles. Now you do need to be a little bit careful with these pieces because you're cutting on the bias and you don't want to stretch or pull too much on these. But if you're gentle, it's a pretty quick way to get 4 at a time half square triangles. And I'm just going to press these towards the darker fabric, so the green apple fabric. All right, all of my pieces are trimmed and we are ready to put this block together. So we're going to start with one of the pale pink squares in the middle. That's a 2.5 inch square. And then we're going to put our miniature flying geese, and they're actually going to go upside down. I'll put those around here. And our little half square triangles, the green part is going to go in. And then we're going to do the second row. And now the flying geese are going to go right side up. That nice popsicle and pink color. And then we've got our pink squares, our 2.5 inch squares for each of the corners. Actually, that'd be a pretty block just right there. And we're going to keep going though. We've got our last set of flying geese with the green apple. And then we have our half square triangles. And these are going to mimic the direction of the flying geese green apple triangle. And lastly, we've got our 4 2.5 inch of the color feather for our background fabric to finish the corners. All right, I'm going to go ahead and sew all this together. And if you haven't yet, maybe download the instructions because I include instructions on where to press the seams. So if you'd like some advice on that, those are in the instructions for block 4. All right, I'm going to sew these and then I'll come back and show you the final block. And there we have the finished block. I really liked making this one. It brought me a lot of joy, especially this little guy here. And when I was sewing this together, I thought, ooh, I could just stop here at the pink. That would make a really cool block. But of course I had to keep going because I needed this to be the right size. So the unfinished size of this block is 12.5 inches square, and then the finished size is going to be 12 inches square. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're sewing along, please send me some pictures. I would absolutely love to see the fabrics you're using and how your blocks are turning out. And I'll put a link to my email in the description of this channel. All right, have a wonderful day.